In the depths of the Red Keep, far from the sunlit courtyards, Tywin Lannister sat alone in his chamber. His brother Kevin had just left, bringing news that did not please him. The Great Tournament at Harrenhal was to be the largest in living memory, and every lord in the Seven Kingdoms had been summoned. Tywin understood what that meant. Rhaegar was gathering his enemies and his friends alike, and Tywin Lannister was neither. He had been excluded from the small council, his daughter married off to Edmure Tully, his son Jaime kept as a hostage in the Kingsguard. The Lion of Casterly Rock paced in a cage of silk and gold. He had hoped for a rebellion. The North, the Riverlands, the Vale, any of them might have risen against the dragon. But Eddard Stark had knelt, and Jon Arryn had grown old and cautious, and the Riverlands had swallowed their anger and smiled at the crown. Tywin needed a spark. He had heard whispers from across the narrow sea. The Golden Company was on the move. Contracts had been signed, ships had been bought in Volantis, and at their head stood a man who called himself the true heir to the Iron Throne. A Blackfyre. The old words echoed in Tywin's mind. Some contracts are writ in ink and some in blood. He sent a raven to Illyrio Mopatis, hinting at gold and friendship. He did not commit to treason, not yet. He wanted the chaos ready, should the opportunity arise. Meanwhile, far to the north, Jaehaerys Targaryen was preparing to leave the frozen lands behind. He had spent weeks beyond the wall, training with Bloodraven, learning to warg into his direwolf winter, to see through the eyes of his dragon Bloodfyre. But the three-eyed raven had told him that his time in the cave was over. "Go south," Brynden Rivers said, his voice like dry leaves. "Your father awaits, and the enemies of your house gather in the shadows. You are needed not only for the war against the dead, but for the war of the living. Show them that the dragon has returned." Jaehaerys nodded. He took Dark Sister, strapped it to his belt, and climbed onto Bloodfyre's back. The white dragon leaped into the gray sky, and they flew over the wall, over the gift, over the lonely towers of the Night's Watch. Below him, he saw his uncle Benjen riding north toward Castle Black. He did not land. He had already said his goodbyes. The journey south took 3 days. He flew over the neck, where the swamps of the Crannogmen hid Howland Reed's home. He considered stopping, but decided against it. He had already thanked the Lord of Greywater Watch. Now he needed to see the father he had never met. He crossed the Riverlands, where smoke rose from 100 chimneys and armies drilled in the fields. He saw the banners of House Tully, of Fry, of Vance and Piper. They were all preparing for the tournament. And then he saw Harrenhal. The great castle rose from the shore of the God's Eye like a black scar upon the land. Its towers were twisted and melted from Balerian's fire, but the yards were filled with pavilions and the lists were hung with cloth of gold. Thousands of tents surrounded the walls, and the banners of 100 houses flapped in the wind. The tournament had not yet begun, but the lords were already gathering. Jaehaerys circled high above, hidden by a bank of clouds. He saw the Lion of Lannister, the Stag of Baratheon, the Rose of Tyrell, the Sun and Spear of Martell, and he saw the gray direwolf of Stark. His heart tightened. Ned Stark would be there with his family. Jaehaerys had not seen Winterfell since he left, and he did not wish to see it again. But he knew that his father would be inside the castle. Rhaegar Targaryen, the king who had wept for a child he thought dead. Jaehaerys had spent his whole life believing himself unwanted. Now he was about to meet the man who had never stopped searching for him, even when he did not know he was searching. He was not ready, but he had never been ready for anything in his life. He had learned to fight because no one would protect him. He had learned to hunt because no one would feed him. He had learned to warg and to ride a dragon because the blood of old Valyria burned in his veins. He would learn to face his father the same way. He landed Bloodfyre in a wooded valley 2 leagues from Harrenhal, hidden from prying eyes. Winter was waiting for him there, having followed the dragons sent through the forest. Jaehaerys dismounted and spoke softly to the dragon. "Stay here. I will call you when I need you." Bloodfyre rumbled deep in his chest and curled among the trees, his white scales blending with the snow that still clung to the ground. Jaehaerys took a deep breath, then walked toward the castle on foot, with Winter at his heel. The guards at the gate saw the direwolf and reached for their spears. But Jaehaerys raised his hand. "I am here to see the king," he said. "My name is Jaehaerys Targaryen." The guards did not believe him at first. He laughed, told him to go back to his mother. Then Winter growled, a sound like grinding stone, and the guards stopped laughing. One of them ran to fetch the captain of the gate. Within an hour, word had reached the king. Rhaegar was in his solar with Elia and Arthur Dane when the messenger burst in. "Your Grace," the man gasped, "a boy is at the gate. Says he is Jaehaerys Targaryen. He has a direwolf as white as snow." Rhaegar's heart stopped. He looked at Elia and she looked at him. They had waited so long, planned so carefully, and now their son had come to them, not waiting for the tournament, not waiting for the great confrontation. He had come on his own. Rhaegar rose from his chair, his legs trembling. "Bring him to me," he said. "Bring him to the Godswood. No one else. Just the boy and his wolf." The Godswood of Harrenhal Harrenhal was old and dark, its weirwood tree pale as bone, its leaves red as blood. Rhaegar stood before it, wearing a simple black tunic, no crown on his head. He had dismissed his Kingsguard, even Arthur, though Arthur had argued. "He is my son," Rhaegar had said. "I will not greet him with steel in my hand." The gates opened, and Jaehaerys walked in. He was shorter than Rhaegar had imagined, but his shoulders were broad, and he moved with the quiet grace of a hunter. His dark hair fell in loose curls to his collar, and his gray eyes, Lyanna's eyes, swept the godswood before settling on Rhaegar. Behind him, the white direwolf padded silently, its red eyes watching everything. Neither spoke for a long moment. A raven called from the weirwood. Then Jaehaerys said, "You are my father." It was not a question. Rhaegar nodded. "I am, and you are my son." "I have known for only a few moons," Jaehaerys said. "I did not believe it at first. Howland Reed told me." Then Maester Aemon confirmed it with his own hands. "And Bloodfyre, the dragon. He would not have let me ride him if I were not a Targaryen." Rhaegar took a step closer. "I am sorry," he said. "I am sorry for every day you spent in Winterfell, believing you were unwanted. I am sorry that I believed Ned Stark's lie. I should have looked. I should have asked questions. I should have known that Lyanna would not have let our child die without a fight." Jaehaerys' jaw tightened. "You should have," he agreed, "but you did not, and I cannot change that. I cannot bring back the years I lost. I cannot forget the cold looks, the salted food, the whispers. I was called a bastard, a Snow, an ugly stain on the honor of House Stark. I learned to fight because the other boys would have beaten me bloody otherwise. I learned to hunt because I would have starved. And I learned to warg because I was so alone that I had to find my friends in the minds of beasts." Rhaegar felt tears burning behind his eyes, but he did not let them fall. He had wept enough over the years. Now he needed to be strong. "What can I do?" he asked. "Tell me, and I will do it." "I do not know," Jaehaerys admitted. "I came south because I wanted to see you, not because I expected anything, not because I needed a father. I have survived without one for 11 years. I can survive without one for 11 more. But Bloodraven said that I am the song of ice and fire, and that the war against the dead is coming. He said I would need you, and you would need me. So here I am." Rhaegar's heart ached. He wanted to embrace the boy, to hold him and never let go. But he saw the distance in Jaehaerys' eyes, the wariness. He had lived among wolves that did not love him. He would not trust a dragon simply because it shared his blood. "Will you stay?" Rhaegar asked. "The tournament begins in 3 days. I wanted to use it to confront Ned Stark, to force him to tell the truth before all the lords." "You have already told the truth yourself. You have come to me. That is more than I dared hope for." Jaehaerys considered. "I will stay," he said, "but not in the castle. I will sleep in the woods with Winter and Bloodfyre, and I will not sit at your table or wear your colors. Not yet. The lords do not know me. They will not welcome a boy who was raised a bastard. Let them see the dragon first. Then they can decide whether to call me prince or monster." Rhaegar wanted to argue, but he understood. The boy needed time. They both did. "As you wish," he said, "but I will tell Elia. She has been waiting for this moment almost as long as I have. She loved your mother. She will want to meet you." A flicker of something, surprise, perhaps, crossed Jaehaerys' face. "Queen Elia. She does not hate me? I'm Lyanna's son. My mother took her husband." Rhaegar shook his head. "Elia was never angry at Lyanna. She was angry at me at first, but she came to love your mother, and she has mourned her every day since she died. She will love you too if you let her." Jaehaerys looked away, toward the weirwood. "I will meet her," he said quietly, "but not tonight. Tonight I need to think." He turned and walked back toward the gate, Winter following close behind. Rhaegar watched him go, his heart full of sorrow and hope. The boy was colder than he had expected, harder. That was not surprising. The north had forged him like a blade, and now the south would test him like fire. That night, in the great hall of Harrenhal, the lords feasted and plotted. Tywin Lannister sat at a table near the wall, speaking in low tones with his brother Kevan. "The boy is here," Kevan said. "I have heard the whispers. A boy with a direwolf asking for the king." Tywin's eyes narrowed. "Jon Snow, the Stark bastard. Or not a bastard, it seems. Rhaegar's get by Lyanna. I had suspected something of the sort when Stark returned from the tower with a child he claimed was his own. No honorable man beds a woman at war and then brings home the proof. There was more to it. What will you do?" Kevan asked. Tywin smiled, thin and cold. "Nothing, for now. Let Rhaegar embrace his lost son. Let the lords see the boy. Some will be overjoyed. Others will see a threat, and I will wait. When the time is right, I will remind them that a dragon with 2 heads is still a dragon, but a dragon with 3 heads is a monster. We shall see which way the wind blows." Across the hall, Varys the spider watched Tywin from the shadows. He had heard the rumors too, and he had already sent a message to Illyrio in Pentos. The pieces were moving. The Golden Company had finished its preparations in Volantis. Soon they would sail west, and the boy calling himself Aegon Blackfyre, or perhaps Aegon Targaryen, Targaryen would make his claim. But Varys knew that the true prince, the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, had just walked into Harrenhal. Changed everything. He smiled to himself and disappeared into the darkness. On the third day, the tournament began. The jousting was magnificent, the melees brutal, the feasts endless. Lords and ladies cheered for their champions, and the gold flowed like wine. But the true spectacle was still to come. On the fifth evening, Rhaegar called a grand council in the Great Hall. Every lord of note was present. Tywin Lannister, Mace Tyrell, Doran Martell's brother Oberyn, Jon Arryn, Stannis Baratheon, and Eddard Stark. Tension was thick as smoke. Rhaegar stood before them, wearing his crown and a suit of black armor inlaid with rubies. "My lords," he began, "I have summoned you here not only for the tournament, but for a matter of grave importance. 11 years ago, I believed that my wife Lyanna Stark had died in the Tower of Joy, along with our unborn child. I was wrong. The child survived. He was taken north by Eddard Stark and raised as a bastard under the name Jon Snow." Hall erupted. Catelyn Stark screamed. Robb stood, his hand on his sword. But Ned Stark remained seated, his face pale as milk. "It is true," he said, his voice barely audible. "I took the boy. I lied. I am guilty." Jaehaerys had been standing in the shadows at the back of the hall, with Winter at his side. Now he stepped forward. "I am that boy," he said. "My true name is Jaehaerys Targaryen. I do not ask for your love or your loyalty. I did not come here to claim the throne or to punish Lord Stark. I came because my father asked to see me, and because there are greater wars coming than the squabbles of lords." He looked at Rhaegar, and for the first time his voice softened. "Cannot forgive the past, but I can choose what comes next, and I choose to stand with my family, whatever that family may be." The hall was silent. Then Rhaegar did something no one expected. He stepped down from the dais, walked to Jaehaerys, and knelt before him. "I am your father," he said, "and I have failed you, but I swear before gods and men that I will spend the rest of my days trying to make it right. If you will have me." Jaehaerys looked down at the king. His eyes were wet, but he did not cry. He reached out his hand and helped Rhaegar to his feet. "I will have you," he said, "but we have much to learn about each other, and the realm has much to learn about me." The lords began to whisper. Some smiled, some frowned. Tywin Lannister sat still as a statue, his golden eyes fixed on the boy. He saw the direwolf, the dark hair, the gray eyes. He saw no dragon features, no silver hair, no violet eyes. But he had seen dragons before, not the beasts themselves, but the look in the eyes of those who rode them. The boy had that look, chilled Tywin to the bone. That night, after the council, Rhaegar and Jaehaerys walked together in the Godswood. The weirwood watched them, its red eyes unblinking. "There is something I must tell you," Rhaegar said. "The Golden Company is planning an invasion. I have been hired by a man who claims to be Aegon Targaryen, my son by Elia, but that cannot be. Elia's son Aegon was killed in the sack of King's Landing before I returned. This pretender is a Blackfyre or a puppet of Illyrios, but he has an army, and he has friends in the Reach and the Stormlands." Jaehaerys frowned. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you have a dragon," Rhaegar said. "Dragons are the only thing that can stop an army of 10,000 mercenaries without burning the countryside to ash. I do not want to use Bloodfyre as a weapon of conquest. But if the Golden Company lands on our shores, we may have no choice." Jaehaerys was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Bloodfyre will do what he must, but I will not fly him against men who have not yet drawn their swords. Let us see what this pretender wants. Perhaps he can be reasoned with." Rhaegar shook his head. "I have tried reason. Varys has tried bribery. The Golden Company does not break contracts. They will come, and when they do, the realm will bleed. The only question is whether we bleed alone, or whether we bleed together with the North, the Riverlands, and the Vale." "You do not trust them," Jaehaerys said. "You fear they will join the invader." "I fear that Tywin Lannister will," Rhaegar admitted. "The others are angry, but they are not traitors. Not yet. But if the Golden Company lands and Tywin raises his banners in support, the Riverlands may follow. And if the Riverlands fall, the North will not stay behind its frozen walls. They will march south to protect their blood." Jaehaerys looked up at the stars. "Then we must make sure the North does not want to march. I know Ned Stark. He is cold, bitter, but he is not a fool. He will not start a war he cannot win, especially now that his lie has been exposed. And Robb is young and proud, but he loves his sisters and his brothers. If you show him respect, he may come to see you as an ally, not an enemy." Rhaegar placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You have been among them longer than I have. I will trust your judgment, but I will also prepare for the worst. The tournament is not just a celebration. It is a muster. I have asked every lord to bring his best knights and his strongest men. If the Golden Company lands, we will have an army already gathered." Jaehaerys nodded. "And what of me? What will you ask of me?" Rhaegar smiled, a sad, weary smile. "I ask only that you stay, that you let me be your father, that you let the people of Westeros see their lost prince. The rest will come come in time. They stood in silence, father and son, under the pale weirwood. The wind whispered through the leaves, and somewhere in the distance, a dragon roared. Great Tournament had begun, but the true Game of Thrones was only just starting. In the shadows, Tywin Lannister sharpened his claws, the Golden Company raised its sails, and the dead gathered beyond the wall. Spring had not yet come to Westeros. Winter was still coming, and with it, fire and blood.